Over many years, I have collected everything Mother has said on Savitri, and it is a vast amount. It would take a whole session just to share those things. So I decided that I will just do a few each week to inspire us. So firstly, the Mother says that Savitri is the daily record of the spiritual experiences of the individual who has written a complete system of yoga, which can serve as a guide for those who want to follow the integral sadhana. And then she speaks of Savitri as the yoga of the earth in its ascension towards the divine. And this beautiful quote by Mother. She says, "The direct road to Savitri is by the heart." A question to Mother. Savitri represents the Mother's consciousness, doesn't she? Yes. What does Satyavan represent? Well, he is the avatar. He is the incarnation of the Supreme. And that was in one of Mother's questions and answers. I had never heard that before. We have always known, can you sit in one of the front chairs? We have always known about Savitri, about Ashwapati being Sri Aurobindo. And now Mother also says that Satyavan is the avatar. So I think that we have to understand that Sri Aurobindo is everything in Savitri. He's all of the characters. Now, Mother says a very interesting thing here. Savitri is the expression of Sri Aurobindo's experience. And then she says, all the rest is preparation. Savitri is the message. Wow. So, I will stop there today and we'll go back to our regular evenings of satsang. Yes, question?
I was just going to ask you to read the first line of the first
You have to speak louder.
First line of the first one. Savitri is the record, was written by someone.
The spiritual experiences of the individual, she doesn't say Sri Aurobindo,
Yes.
who has written it.
Yes. So what is the sentence again? Savitri is...
It is a complete system of yoga, which can serve as a guide for those who want to follow the integral sadhana. And then she follows that with, it is the yoga of earth in its ascension towards the divine. And then she says the direct road to Savitri is by the heart, not by the mind. Interesting. So, we will continue. We are very early on. Last week was our first week, and we just began with Book 1, Canto 1. And we'll continue with that. And we stopped at an interesting point where we hear that calling the adventure of consciousness and joy. Now, for many people in the West, Satprem wrote the book, The Adventure of Consciousness. taking it from this line, calling the adventure of consciousness and joy. And it opened many, many people in the West to Sri Aurobindo. So we see that this message from the dawn, from Usha, has crept through the reluctant hush, calling the adventure of consciousness and joy, and conquering nature's disillusioned breast, compelled renewed consent to see and feel. A thought was sown in the unsounded void. A sense was born within the darkness depths. Now we have the word darkness here with an apostrophe after the S, which tells us that we don't pronounce it as darknesses, but simply darkness. A memory quivered in the heart of time, as if a soul long dead were moved to live. But the oblivion that succeeds the fall had blotted the crowded tablets of the past, and all that was destroyed must be rebuilt, and old experience labored out once more. Well, we see here that there are many times when there were great evolutions on the earth, and in this process of evolution, the beings on earth perhaps went too far in some ways, let's say occult ways, or in ways of manifesting different beings, instruments. And so Mother said that the earth, not the whole earth, of course, but the earth was destroyed 6 times, totally destroyed. But she also told us that the 7th time it would not be destroyed. And that is because Sri Aurobindo and Mother brought down a new principle of life. And that principle he termed the supramental. He also called it the real idea, or the Gnostic principle. So we're going to see now what is possible for a descent of the light on earth. And he's going to tell us about this. But he begins with this extraordinary sentence: all can be done if the God touch is there. The God touch is a hyphenated word, so it's actually one word, God touch. So everything can be done if we, all of us, individually and collectively, can have that God touch within our inner being. A hope stole in that hardly dared to be amid the night's forlorn indifference. Now, forlorn can be understood in a couple of ways. Forsaken, or sad or lonely because it's deserted or abandoned. Those are the dictionary definitions, the key ones. So now we're going to see how this takes place. As if solicited in an alien world, with timid and hazardous instinctive grace, orphaned and driven out to seek a home, an errant marvel with no place to live. Into a far-off nook of heaven, there came a slow, miraculous gesture's dim appeal. So we see that this manifestation of the true light is appealing to heaven because it has been in the past driven out to seek a home. Please come here. Would you also sit in this center row? Thank you. Sri Aurobindo's number is 12. So I always have 12 seats in a circle. And usually we get 12 people. We have 11 today. And we'll get 12. So this light, this force of God, it seems to be solicited in an alien world. When we solicit something, we ask earnestly or persistently for it. But it's asking with timid and hazardous instinctive grace. It's orphaned and it's driven out to seek a home. What is it? It's an errant marvel with no place to live. So Mother and Sri Aurobindo tell us that there are many, many worlds. We know there are endless galaxies. And we also know that Sri Aurobindo has told us that the earth is the chosen place for the divine to inhabit. And for the life divine to be on earth and change all this sorrowful mess of humanity into a divine life. And his book, The Life Divine, mentally, and I would say even higher than mentally, from the overhead consciousness, speaks of this through maybe 1,000 lines. So now, what has happened? Into a far-off nook of heaven, there came a slow, miraculous gesture's dim appeal. This is poetry of the highest level, of a level higher than we can truly understand with our limited consciousness. All we can do is hope to touch it a little, or to allow it to touch the inner being a little. And Mother says, if we read it again and again, each time we read it, we will learn something more. I have read the entire book perhaps 10 times, back to front. And each time I read it, I learn something more. So let us now see what's going to happen. The persistent thrill of a transfiguring touch persuaded the inert black quietude, and beauty and wonder disturbed the fields of God. Think of that. Quietude is the state of being at total rest, stillness, tranquility. So this persistent thrill of a transfiguring touch, something that can transfigure something, can change it. And this is why we have the Om choir, to transfigure the world and all of us who attend. A wandering hand of pale, enchanted light that glowed along a fading moment's brink, fixed with gold panel and opalescent hinge, a gate of dreams, ajar on mystery's verge. This description is beyond our total understanding. We can only try and understand it within. We see this wandering hand of pale, enchanted light, glowing along this fading moment's brink, and it's fixed with gold panel and opalescent hinge. Opalescent is like that of an opal, with a milky iridescence. It's a gate of dreams, ajar on mystery's verge. Okay. One lucent corner, windowing hidden things, forced the world's blind immensity to sight. So that power is there. That little lucent corner, but it's a lucent corner that is windowing hidden things. It forces this blind immensity of the world to sight. And now, here's what happens. The darkness failed and slipped like a falling cloak from the reclining body of a god. Sri Aurobindo uses this image a couple of times in Savitri. And he uses it when he speaks of death. He says death is just when we take off a cloak and rise to take a new birth. So we see this darkness failing and slipping like a falling cloak from the reclining body of a god. Then, through the pallid rift that seemed at first hardly enough from a trickle from the suns, outpoured the revelation and the flame. Agni has descended. Let's go through a couple of words, because we always have to go through these words that Sri Aurobindo has chosen, because they are all supremely divine. No word in Savitri was chosen by chance. So we see that this pallid rift, pallid is lacking in color or lacking in vitality. And what is a rift? It's a gap or a space made by splitting. It's a fissure or a cleft, like an opening or a break in a forest. So through this pallid rift that seemed at first hardly enough for a trickle from the suns. Imagine a trickle from the suns. It was hardly enough even for that. When Mother talks about the sun, and she talked to Huta, who was a dear friend of mine, and Huta's paintings are there in Savitri Bhavan in the adjoining room. She asked Mother, Are you really a God? And Mother said, come tomorrow. And the next morning when she came, she could hardly speak to me. She was so taken. From here up, Mother showed her her divine form, which we could not see, still cannot see. The brief, perpetual sign recurred above. Now look at the words he uses. Brief, but perpetual. The brief, perpetual sign recurred, happened again, above. So that we go back to where we began and we see that it's happening again. This descent of the Purusha, Parabrahman, upon the earth. A glamour from the unreached transcendences, iridescent with the glory of the unseen. Now, I have to go through a couple of definitions for you. Iridescent, of course, we all know. It's having colors like the rainbow. But with the glory of the unseen, Sri Aurobindo capitalizes the word unseen. And in his Life Divine, he quotes the Mandukya Upanishad. The unseen, with whom there can be no pragmatic relations, unseizable, featureless, unthinkable, undesignable by name, whose substance is the certitude of oneself, in whom world existence is stilled, who is all peace and bliss. That is the self. That is what must be known. A message from the unknown immortal light, ablaze upon creation's quivering edge. Dawn built her aura of magnificent hues and buried its seed of grandeur in the hours. Dawn has come. Light has come to the world from all this darkness where there was nothing, an impenetrable darkness that one would think nothing could cleave it, nothing could penetrate it, but the light is always more powerful than the darkness. What is this light? Because Sri Aurobindo capitalizes it here. And as I said last week, when Sri Aurobindo capitalizes a word, it is the essence of that word. So let us look for a few minutes into the word light. First, we quote from the Life Divine. Light is primarily a spiritual manifestation of the divine reality, illuminative and creative. Material light is a subsequent representation or conversion of it into matter for the purposes of the material energy. And now, one of my favorite quotes from Sri Aurobindo, but there are thousands of them. Our sense, by its incapacity, has invented darkness. In truth, there is nothing but light. Only it is a power of light either above or below our poor human vision's limited range. For do not imagine that light is created by the suns. The suns are only physical concentrations of light. But the splendor they concentrate for us is self-born and everywhere. And he ends this quote, God is everywhere, and wherever God is, there is light. My dear friend, Dmitri von Mohrenschildt, who was born in Russia and escaped during the revolution, received this quote from Mother and gave it to me. I have it in her handwriting. The light is what?
The force is everywhere.
Excuse me. The light is everywhere. The force is everywhere. And the world is so small. So now we see that dawn has come, built her aura of magnificent hues, and buried its seed, that aura seed of grandeur, a seed of grandeur, in the hours. Now we hear that an instant's visitor the Godhead shone. On life's thin border awhile the vision stood, and bent over earth's pondering forehead curve. So it only stood a while on life's thin border. And it bent over earth's pondering, thoughtful, deeply, seriously thoughtful, pondering forehead curve, interpreting a recondite beauty and bliss. Recondite, concealed, hidden, interpreting a recondite beauty and bliss in colors, hieroglyphs of mystic sense. It wrote the lines of a significant myth, telling of a greatness of spiritual dawns, a brilliant code penned with the sky for page. Now, people, I tell you, we are here in that spiritual dawn, all of us. We cannot help but breathe it. And it is, despite all the terrors we see on this earth, the wars, the greed, the power hungry, mean nothing. This light is more powerful than anything else. But we must have faith in the Divine Mother, in Sri Aurobindo, and in the future, because we are the future. Almost that day, the Epiphany was disclosed, of which our thoughts and hopes are signal flares. A lonely splendor from the invisible goal almost was flung on the opaque inane. Well, we have a few important words here. The Epiphany is an appearance or a manifestation, especially of a deity. Almost that day, the epiphany was disclosed, of which our thoughts and hopes are signal flares. A lonely splendor from the invisible goal almost was flung on the opaque inane. Opaque, of course, is impenetrable by light. Inane, something empty, something void of infinite space. But once more, a tread perturbed the vacant vasts. Infinity's center, a face of rapturous calm, parted the eternal lids that open heaven. A form from far beatitudes seemed to near. Ambassadress twixt eternity and change, the omniscient goddess leaned across the breadths that wrap the fated journeyings of the stars and saw the spaces ready for her feet. So this is the first time we hear of the Divine Mother. So a form, capitalized F, from far beatitudes seemed to near. Ambassadress, this is the Mother, the divine creatrix. She is between eternity and change, that she's coming to earth. The omniscient goddess, so he first calls her the ambassadress, and then he calls her the omniscient goddess, leaned across the breadths that wrap the fated journeyings of the stars. Oh, these breadths that wrap the fated journeyings of the stars, and saw the spaces ready for her feet. Once she half looked behind her for her veiled son. Then, thoughtful, went to her immortal work. Earth, and here we have Earth now. Earth felt the imperishable's passage close. The waking ear of nature heard her steps. And wideness turned to her its limitless eye, and scattered on sealed depths her luminous smile kindled to fire the silence of the worlds. I have to go back a little bit, because what is this nature, this waking ear of nature? Sri Aurobindo tells us in the essays, Divine and Human, nature is nothing but the will of God in action. And we have learned from the Indian history that there were 10 avatars. And these avatars begin in the sea and evolve steadily, first into the amphibian, the being that can take air and water. And can you tell us, Palani, the 10 avatars? No? Okay. So I won't go further with that. It goes into the boar, the animal, and of course then it evolves further into the animal man, etc., etc. Finally into the avatar, into the supreme man. And we have had so many avatars on this earth. attempting to lift us above. We have had Christ, we have had Krishna, we had Rama, and now we have Sri Aurobindo and Mother. Pardon?
We have Buddha before that.
We have
Buddha.
Buddha, of course, was an avatar. So the waking ear of nature heard her steps. And nature is only the will of God in nature. And in Essays on the Gita, Sri Aurobindo tells us that nature is God's power of various self-becoming. And so we see that this various self-becoming is most evident in the plants and the animals. We see tremendous changes in plants, tremendous changes in the animals. There are no longer the dinosaurs with us. They had their moment, and then they faded out. All grew a consecration and a rite. Now, what is a consecration? It's a very important word. Sri Aurobindo says, in the Synthesis of Yoga, consecration becomes, in its fullness, a devoting of all our being to the divine. Therefore also of all our thoughts and our works. Consecration is a process by which one trains the consciousness to give itself to the divine. And now I'm going to share with you two beautiful words, sentences of the Mother to a very young person. Mother says, it is very simple, as you will see. Number one, the infinite is the inexhaustible storehouse of forces. The individual is a battery, a storage cell, which runs down after use. Consecration is the wire that connects the individual battery to the infinite reserve of forces. And then she has a second definition. The infinite is the river that flows without cease. The individual is the little pond that dries up slowly in the sun. Consecration is the canal that connects the river to the pond and prevents the pond from drying up. Air was a vibrant link between earth and heaven. The wide-winged hymn of a great priestly wind arose and failed upon the altar hills. The high boughs prayed in a revealing sky. Here, where our half-lit ignorance skirts the gulfs, on the dumb bosom of the ambiguous earth, here where one knows not even the step in front, and truth has her throne on the shadowy back of doubt. On this anguished and precarious field of toil, outspread beneath some large, indifferent gaze, impartial witness of our joy and bale, our prostrate soil bore the awakening ray. And I will stop there for today. What a magical thing Sri Aurobindo has given us in Savitri. He writes in another place earlier, all's miracle here, and can by miracle change. We are that miracle in the process of evolving. Namaste all. Namaste, 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 namaste all. So in 15 minutes we have our Om choir, and you're all welcome to join. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to get something from Sri Aurobindo to answer them. But perhaps it's best we're just silent for a few moments. Take in all that we've received from Sri Aurobindo, aware that the light has come to the earth and it is bringing the next stage of the evolution of humanity. There is no doubt that the human being will be exceeded by a divine being. The body will change. Mother speaks of a body that will need no food, or if it takes food, it will transform that food so that there are no processes of elimination is the word, yes. And she also mentioned that the first supramental being will come with power, not love. Love will come second, but you can understand how it will have to have power in this world of ours.
Power.
Power is the divine also, the divine force.